Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into something really quite extraordinary. It's a single video, looks like a poker coaching session on the surface, but wow, it turned out to be this unexpected intersection of like high stakes poker strategy, ancient philosophy, and a really sharp critique of modern society.
It's quite a mix, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, the source for this deep dive is this really rich conversation. It's from a video called Poker Coaching and Philosophy Discussion Deep Dive with Student and Coach.
Mhm.
And it features this passionate poker student who's actually also an author.
Right.
And his coach, Norman, who seems very experienced. What makes it so fascinating is how it just naturally weaves in ideas from this documentary, Barnum World and, Stoicism, specifically Seneca.
Yeah, exactly. So our mission today for you is to pull out the most valuable nuggets from this, frankly, surprising blend. We want to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding how strategic thinking, ideas about personal freedom, and just navigating this crazy information-saturated world, how they're all connected, whether you play poker or not, it
Yeah.
applies way beyond the table.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Right.
So the core dynamic, it's this student, right? And he is actually putting Stoic ideas into a new book he's writing. And he's in this coaching session with Norman.
Yeah, and what's really striking is how smoothly they go from talking about specific poker hands to this, really deep philosophical critique
Yeah.
of society today. And they use that film Barnum World as a sort of jumping off point for that bigger conversation.
Okay, so tell us about Barnum World. What's the gist of its critique?
Well, as they discuss it in the video, the film seems to argue that modern media, politics, it's all heavily manipulated. They bring up a specific example, those instances where politicians' speeches sound eerily similar, like the Melania Trump and Michelle Obama speech comparison that was everywhere a while back.
Oh, right. I remember that.
They use that as sort of exhibit A for what they see as this systemic inauthenticity, a kind of performance.
It's not just current stuff. They go historical, too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. They mention propagandists like Edward Bernays, even Joseph Goebbels. The idea being that there's this long history of psychologically conditioning the public, getting people to, buy into systems or narratives that might actually be quite hollow underneath.
Heavy stuff. How do the student and coach react to that in the video? Do they just, accept this critique wholesale?
That's what's interesting. There's this cautious realism, both from a friend of the student who's mentioned and
Yeah.
from Norman, the coach. They seem to acknowledge the problems, yeah, but they're also skeptical about, radical sweeping change being easy or likely. It feels very Stoic, actually.
How so?
That undercurrent of acceptance, focusing on what you can control your own judgment, your own reactions, rather than getting overwhelmed by these massive external forces you can't really change directly.
Okay, that makes sense. And that Stoic angle, that's not just theoretical for the student, right? You said he's writing about it.
Exactly. He really emphasizes that philosophy isn't just academic, it's got to be lived. He even kind of musingly reads his own books on these soul reader classes.
Ah, really? That's commitment.
It shows he's really trying to integrate it. And this leads him into talking about Seneca, specifically how Seneca navigated the treacherous waters of Emperor Nero's court.
Ah, the classic Stoic challenge. How to live virtuously under tyranny.
Precisely. They discuss Seneca's relationship with wealth and power, using it to illustrate this idea of knowing when to pull back. The wisdom of maybe even sacrificing your fortune if it means protecting your safety, your inner peace, valuing that more.
Which brings us right to that core debate they have, doesn't it? About money and freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
The student puts forward the view that money is a tool for freedom. He uses this analogy of ancient slaves being able to buy their liberation. Money as leverage.
A means to an end? Seems logical.
But Norman offers this really strong counterpoint. He argues that true freedom isn't about having lots of money. It's about self-sufficiency.
Self-sufficiency, how does he define that?
He suggests that depending on anything external, huge wealth, complex systems even say, the power grid actually makes you less autonomous. It's a dependence, right? So real freedom is needing less from the outside.
Wow, okay. That's a different way of looking at it. It challenges the whole get rich, get free narrative.
It really does. It asks you to think, well, does relying on all this stuff, even if it's convenient, actually limit you in some fundamental way?
Does he give examples of how to be more self-sufficient then? In a practical sense?
Not explicitly like a checklist, but you kind of see it demonstrated in the poker coaching that follows. It suggests that self-sufficiency comes from building internal skills.
Ah, like critical thinking. Discipline.
Exactly. Things that aren't dependent on external circumstances, things you cultivate inside yourself.
Hmm.
Adaptability, emotional control. And that's where the conversation pivots back to the practical, analytical part, the actual poker coaching.
Right. So the philosophy kind of sets the stage for the strategy.
Perfectly. They get into some key poker concepts that mirror these themes of judgment and control, like estimating an opponent's average hand.
Not just guessing what they have.
No, it's more systematic, focusing on their median hand based on how they're playing, not getting fixated on the absolute best hand they could have, like pocket aces or the absolute worst. It's about the most probable range, discerning reality.
Makes sense. And pre-flop, before the community cards come out.
Norman gives some really concrete advice there, like folding king-queen if there are several players already in the pot.
Why is that specific hand tricky?
Because, while it looks strong heads up, its value plummets when lots of people are seeing the flop. The risk goes way up that someone hits something better. They also talk about when it's right to just limp in, just call the minimum bet, versus raising or folding weaker hands like, say, 10 and 9 suited. It's very context dependent.
Okay, and after the flop, when the first cards are out.
Then it's about things like betting for value, when you think you have the best hand, versus betting for protection, to make opponents fold hands that might improve. They look closely at board textures, how connected or suited the community cards are. And Norman stresses checking sometimes, even when you're probably ahead, if the board is dangerous or paired. If you're likely to get resistance, maybe control the pot size instead of bloating it.
So don't just bet automatically if you have a decent hand.
Right. Be strategic. Then, on the later streets, the turn and river, the logic gets even tighter. If you bet the flop and someone calls you, their range of possible hands shrinks. It gets stronger generally. So Norman warns against just blindly betting big again, especially into someone showing strength.
And they mentioned fold equity.
Yeah, that's about figuring out if your bet is likely to make a better or sometimes even an equal hand fold. Can you apply enough pressure?
Got it. Do they walk through actual hands?
They do.
Yeah.
Gives it real context. Like with pocket tens on a dry flock, say king 7-2, all different suits. The advice is often bet big. Protect your hand. Make draws pay. But with a hand like king 3 suited, maybe you hit your flush draw, but the opponent is betting aggressively. Assessing their likely range might tell you the right play is actually a disciplined fold, letting it go.
Even if it feels painful to fold a draw.
Especially then. And there's this key moment with 10 to 9 suited. The student makes an all-in shove when short stacked. And Norman's point, which he makes more than once, is basically, don't panic. Don't just shove because you're short. Wait for a better spot. Maybe one where everyone folds to you pre-flop and you could just steal the blinds without a fight.
So patience again, calculated patience.
Exactly. It's not just about the cards. It's the timing, the opponents, the stack sizes, everything.
And beyond the pure strategy, they touch on the psychology, right? The emotional side.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The student actually reflects on this. He says he's lost some optimism in poker compared to how he feels about financial markets. In markets, he feels more control, maybe, whereas poker has so much variance. He also makes this interesting observation that sometimes being overconfident against weaker players can actually backfire.
How so?
Because it might make them play looser, more recklessly, and sometimes they just get lucky against you. It introduces more chaos.
Huh. Interesting. And Norman's take on the psychology.
He keeps coming back to patience, humility, strategic humility, and the importance of continuous study. He makes the point that small edges, small advantages, if you find them and apply them consistently, they compound over time. That's how you succeed long term. It links back to that self-sufficiency idea, maybe. Building solid internal processes, not just chasing big scores.
Yeah, I see that link. And Norman seems like a good teacher, supportive.
Definitely. He praises the student for bringing interesting hands to review, encourages him to go back over the session later, deepen the learning, and they explicitly talk about avoiding results-oriented thinking.
Ah, the classic trap. Judging your play based on whether you won or lost the specific hand.
Exactly. Instead of judging it based on whether the decision was correct given the information you had at the time. That's crucial in poker, but also, pretty much everywhere else too.
Absolutely. Making the right decision doesn't always guarantee the right outcome, especially short term.
Not at all. So the big takeaway from the video, really, is that poker becomes this kind of microcosm of life. It demands focus, discipline, logical thinking, and that crucial ability to detach from pure emotion when making decisions.
So wrapping this up, what have we really learned here? We've gone from poker coaching through Seneca and Stoicism into a critique of modern media via Barnum World. It's quite a journey.
It is. We've seen these clashing ideas about freedom. Is it wealth providing leverage, or is it Norman's idea of true self-sufficiency, needing less from the outside? And we've seen how poker strategy itself, with its emphasis on logic, patience, reading situations, not getting swayed by immediate results, how those principles apply so broadly.
Yeah, whether you're figuring out an opponent's range or just trying to make sense of the news, maybe?
Exactly. It's about clear thinking and emotional regulation.
Okay, so here's something to maybe mull over after listening. How might that idea of self-sufficiency, as Norman describes it, not needing external validation or resources as much, how might that change how you think about your own goals? Or think about the strategic humility needed in poker. How could applying that kind of forward-looking, non-results-oriented thinking help you navigate uncertainty in your own life, maybe at work or in personal decisions?
Yeah, that's the real deep dive, isn't it? Applying these ideas yourself.
Welcome. I'm going to meet my poker teacher in a couple of minutes. And before that, I want to tell you what I will be doing with my poker teacher. So first, maybe we have a small discussion and we either talk about my book or about a movie I did recommend him. It's this movie. It's called Barnum World. And if you want it, you can just click here, scan the QR code, and it will give you directly the link. It's a very interesting movie, and I recommend it. And if my poker teacher did see it, we could talk about this during the lesson too. Here's my book, and that's the English version of my book. I have translated it in English for you, so you can get that. And there's also the French version, because it was written in French and I did translate it in English. I also have to translate it into German. But I did find the time to work a lot on my fifth book. So I had a lot of ideas about Stoic philosophy and a lot of things I want to process and analyze. And I'm doing this in my fifth book right now. So if everything goes according to plan, no, I mean, not according to plan, but if I keep producing a lot like I do right now, then I will be able to publish my fifth book in a very, very short period of time, because I have already written so much. I'm very prolific right now. So a lot of things talk to me and I get a lot of ideas. My fifth book is a little different than my last one, but they are both very interesting. And I keep reading my fourth book. I keep reading it regularly, on a regular basis. I've put the digital version of my fifth book on my Soul Reader glasses. They're like Kindle glasses, and they're great for reading. So I just put them on and then I have the last passage of my book and I can read it. Unfortunately, I'm so busy that it's hard to find the time, but as soon as I find a couple of minutes, I'll do that. I really enjoy reading my book. That's one of the main reasons. Well, philosophy, it's the art of living. So it's not just something for paper. It's not actually something you talk about. It's something you live. To me, it's very important. Now my poker teacher is waiting for me. So let's switch over and talk to him.
Hello.
New setting?
No, I switch it sometimes to stand up while I'm on PC.
Okay. You have a desk that you can put up and down?
I use a different desk for it.
Okay. What's new?
Well, I watched the documentary.
Great. So I'm very curious to have your feedback on that.
Yeah, so I'll start with the positive. I think it gave a good overview of some aspects of our society and that isn't often talked about. So yeah, I like that, how it described society we have, which has to do a lot about like seeking success and power and all these values that people have. I think it reflects people's values quite nicely, how it shows. And yeah, I don't think it was too controversial. And to me, a lot of it seemed normal, or as in I'm used to the world being like that. I somehow remember the segments where it showed all the news anchors saying the same thing, but I don't find it strange at all, because usually they get like a memo, some agency or something sends out the news, For example, if it's a crime, then probably the bureau who's dealing with that crime would send out like a press memo, and then all the news agencies get the same memo and maybe change it a bit, but usually they're just transferring that news and reading it out how it's said to them. And often nowadays, also news agencies are like a few companies control most of the media. So if one company has different channels, then I think I wasn't shocked by some of the things like that, right? So what else? I found it a bit strange how they set up the documentary as that guy was talking, and he was a character, at least how I understood it. But in the movie, they portrayed him as a real person. So did I understand it correctly? I thought he was an actor acting to be like, yeah, what impression did you get? I think man or something is what name he goes by.
Yeah, so as far as I know, he's playing a role. Yeah, it's made up. He's playing the role of a guy who produces propaganda and is taken very good care by the system for his work. That is made up. And also the car chase at the end, it's all made up. That's just to keep people glued to engaged and glued to the screen. It's a little trick they played. But the rest is all true footage, So your feedback is a little different.
Well, I actually had some more feedback. That was just like the introduction. I guess my main question which comes with that is that it's quite critical of the system. And I think it's good to have these movies which are critical of the system. But for me, the main thing still is that it didn't really pose any solutions, right? So for me, I get it. Sometimes you don't have a solution, but it's still important to talk about the problem in that way. So, or critique or make fun of how things are. So, yeah, I guess for me, still the big question is what would be a better system or a better way? So in a way, it was like if you went to a poker coach, they watched how you play and just say that, yeah, everything's very bad and make fun of how you play, but wouldn't really pose any way to change it, which I guess with society is quite complicated to change it. So I think my general understanding of how it is that the system is how it is because of how people are. So it's like people are greedy, they don't value community, they value more money and success and fame and nice things and nice clothes. And if the general sentiment of society is like that, I guess to use like a religious way of describing it, the devil can only say a trick which people want to believe or want to participate in. So also the elites or bad people or whoever, and they can only really like sell a product or do things to people that most of the society doesn't oppose or agrees with in some way. So to end on a positive note, I think that's the importance of movies like that, right? Or free speech or free journalism, and to talk about things like that so that maybe the public sentiment will change at least a little bit. So I think that's the positive of a movie like that maybe some people see it and think differently. Although I think mostly people who watch movies like that are the people who already think differently. But if there's, even if there's just 100 people or 1,000 people who see the movie and something changes in how they perceive things, and then I think that would already be good. So yeah, I think that's my main points on that.
Okay, so you think it's not too bad? I want to resume.
No, I think the movie was well made, yeah. I think it showed things how they are, yes. But it's also, a lot of this is just to do with US. And I think things are differently in different countries. And so there's different culture in Egypt and different values, just like in Estonia or Sweden or China or anywhere, right? So, people I think have always made fun of US to be like a country of Hollywood and show. And if you ever meet any US tourists, they're often like very self-centered and loud. And I think it's just the way US people are as well, that they're like this big circus and big show.
Okay, I will give you my opinion of the movie, but your opinion is that it is nothing groundbreaking or nothing really shocked you or new to you. For you, you find it interesting, well done, but it doesn't add anything special to, if I get you right. I just try to understand your feelings toward the movie.
Yeah, maybe now I'm forgetting something. I mean, it had to do with many different topics. I'm sure there was something that was like interesting or didn't know about, doesn't come to mind at the moment. But in general, it was like, yeah, I don't know what would change for my life from it now, right? I think it's, yeah, politics. I mean, I'm not very political in the way I'm in general. I think it's, I mean, I think if anything, it enhanced the way I see things. So I think it like gave me a more of a perspective on the election show and why they make it such a big thing and so on.
They want you to believe in the system, because if people start disengaging and not believing in the system anymore, then they would lose all their power. And now, do you think your friend Mikhail also did watch the movie and he gave me his opinion? Do you think I can read it to you just to add it, or do you think he would mind if I do that?
Well, only he knows, right? But I guess if I had to guess, then I guess he wouldn't mind it. Unless it's, yeah, in general, I don't think he would be the person who would mind it.
So if you agree, I'll read it to you.
Okay.
So he said, finally found some time to check these things out. The movie was certainly disheartening, but also made me think how I'd rather stay away from thinking about all this and just try to live my own life. Try to make the best of the possibilities that are there in today's world. There are many fucked up things happening in the world, but yet I don't think that trying to fix them is the only way to live. Sometimes I like to view the human society as just an important temporary entity, and from that perspective, it doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah. I guess I like his, I wouldn't say I completely agree with that it doesn't matter what happens because society has great effect on the lives of people and the ruling laws and power change a lot. But I guess that was one other thing so I liked his opinion. I think I'm in many ways similar, but that reminded me one thing I thought about the movie is if we live in slavery, then I like the slavery we're living in. And I think a lot of the people feel the same way. So I don't feel I'm oppressed by the laws or politicians, or in my personal life, I feel like I get to do anything I want to do, basically. So in that sense, I'm quite happy with how the system is. And I agree with Michael's sentiment. And I think it's something stoic about it also, that even as a slave, you can still concentrate on what is under your control and to do the best with what you have. So I think a lot of people just look at stuff like that and get very disheartened and just feel like everything's pointless and lose a lot of hope. But I feel like, yeah, it doesn't, in that sense, I agree with Mikko that however bad the system is, there's still some space for individual choices and to choose or try to be the best way you can be, or I can be, or anyone can be in that matter. So in some ways, maybe even the worse the system, the better for the individual to be able to show their stoic qualities, right? If everything was already utopia, maybe there would be less ways or possibilities to show character. So maybe that's a good thing as well in a way. And that through difficulties and through opposition or through being, in that way, I agree that it doesn't really matter if you're a slave or a king, or if you live in here or in Russia or in North Korea. I think anywhere, whatever you do, there's a way to try to find some meaning from it and do it well.
Yeah, but right now I'm not focusing on the individual. Apart from the thing, and what I want to show you, and I think it's very relevant with the movie, is that when you talk, I assume that you are honest. I assume that you tell me straightforward what you think. If you don't like the movie, I think you just tell me. And
No, I think
And the message about from your friend, he also, I think he tells me the truth just as he feels about it. As far as I know, you are honest to me, okay, with your replies. Now, what is very important to realize is that everything you see in the movie is just crap. It's just made up crap. It's nonsense, you know? There's one thing that is actually not in the movie, but that they could have added it if they wanted, is, for example, what the First Lady of the US always makes a speech. And they checked the speech, for example, that the wife of Trump made, Melissa. Is that what she's called?
I think Melinda. No.
Or Melinda, yeah, Melinda.
Or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the speech she made, it was
Melania.
Melania? Well, never know. Well, the speech she made, they compared it to the speech that Obama's First Lady did, if I'm not mistaken, and the First Ladies. And it was nearly identical. Maybe one or two words were slightly altered. Everything else was exactly the same. The only thing that changes is that Melissa or Melinda or whatever she's called, she talks very bad English. Also, she's in the US for a very long time, but that doesn't change anything. She has still a huge accent. And the wife of Obama, even though she is black, you did understand a little better what she says. But it was the same speech. So they just did put the same speech on the prompter and let her talk. Half 5 or 15 minutes. And everybody said, oh, how great and how happy we were. And that was so inspiring. I mean, it's a joke. And all the rest, all the presidents you saw, everything they say, it's a joke. It has no meaning. It's a Barnum world. They make up nonsense that sounds good from a propaganda perspective because people like hearing that. They have tested it. They are very good at this. They learned from Freud and the best people who do produce propaganda. The guy Bernays, I think he was the guy in the US who started with propaganda, and in Germany it was Goebbels, but they studied from the best, and they entered also a lot of psychology. So they just make up something that they know that most people will be inclined to think, well, it's not too bad, or it sounds nice, so on. But it has nothing. There's no substance to it. It's just made of crap. It's bullshit. It's 100% bullshit. All the stupid stuff. And I mean, Trump is the best at it. When you see him shouting, we'll make so much, we'll be winning so much, you will say it's too much, and I'll tell you, no, we need some more. He's really, really funny with his nonsense. It is so comical.
Agree with this because, as a coach as well, sometimes people don't need logic. Sometimes people need encouragement. Sometimes people need, just an empty word or something to be hopeful about. And I think to have a country also need that. I think people need to have a hope that next year will be better. Even though if they say the exactly same speech 4 years ago, or it showed there how the same things president said 2010, all these years ago. It doesn't, I think the point is it doesn't have to have meaning. It can be exactly the same. It can even be word for word. But what does bring meaning is if some guy somewhere in US hears it and now feels like an American, feels like hopeful that US is doing something in a positive way. So I think if there's issue with anyone, it's the people. Why do people believe that stuff, or why do people need that stuff? Yeah, I think but the fact is people like it and people do need it. So I think they're just giving to people what they want to hear. And I think they're doing their job in this way.
It is not honest. It's made up crap. So I cannot approve something that is not honest in his way of going, It's like, I don't want to give you too much examples because it will be polemic and you might not agree, and I don't want to go in too much details. But it isn't honest. It's not an honest approach. And
just I want to do a quick comment right now. As it is, if a politician is honest, people won't vote for him and he won't get there, right? So to me, the responsibility is on people to be like, no, we don't want to listen to this crap. We want to listen to someone who's talking about facts and honest stuff. And as long as the general person is dumb or doesn't care, then there cannot, anyone else can't even get there. If someone tried to speak in a logical, smart way, people wouldn't want to listen to it. People would be, I want to listen to that person who's funny and who's saying nonsense, right? So I think the issue is you cannot be a different politician if people only listen to lies. Then the one who's telling the truth, no one won't listen to it, right?
It makes me think about a guy from India. He's some religious figure. And he said something, I never can say it correctly, but he said something like, he said, democracy is from the people, for the people, of the people. But the people are retarded.
Yes, I mean, yes, exactly. I mean, it's, imagine in something like third grade where there's a teacher and then there's students. And then usually how it works is teacher says to the students, okay, let's work on this today. But imagine a democratic classroom, third grade, and the pupils will get to vote what they will do in that lesson in third grade, right? That is democracy in a way. So yes, I mean, old people vote so they get more money. Everyone votes just for whatever they think helps them, and it's the average person's opinion then will be what will win, right? So it's like pop music in that way, that it's Mozart isn't pop music. Most people don't like Mozart or listen to it. So politics is kind of like this. It's just a popularity contest.
Yeah, well, there's one thing I want to add. The thing with people is I'm not condemned. I say a lot of bad things about the crowd. As a philosopher, I don't want to be like the crowd. I don't want to resemble it. I don't want to do what the crowd, I don't want to think as the crowd thinks. I mean, that makes no sense to me. It's like if you tell me to play poker as the biggest fish, there's no point in doing that. But here is what I want to tell you. And I give you the example of my life. I had not a lot going for me. It was a very tough life I had until now. And only slightly things get better with time because of my efforts. And I have to do that all away from the system because the system has never pushed me forward. I never had the wind of the system propelling my boat forward. I always had to find my own solution of going through life. But what I find very interesting is that I managed to do a lot I'm proud of. I did publish the book you are reading, and since I published that, I did produce a lot of interesting stuff. I learned a lot. I did a lot of research, and I really like what I have written until now. And if I keep doing that, well, then I will be able to publish my 5th book in a record time. And if you read the book and you go through it and you see all the research I have done and all the work that comes in it, and let's say I managed to do this in 1 year or even a little less than 1 year, you would be astonished. There are not a lot of people who do that and all that on their own. And I had nothing special going for me. Nobody helped me. Nobody said, okay, we'll do something for you, the design of your book cover or anything else. I had to learn everything myself. And I still am very proud of the result until now. So if I can do that, I mean, most people can. Give me anybody that hasn't really defect. I mean, if it's a guy who always stays at a mental level of 8 years old, and you see that he never grows up, he's always a child, because there's something genetically wrong with him, then there's very little I can do. I cannot change nature. If the defect is huge, there's nothing I can do. But give me an average person. He doesn't have to have the highest IQ like your friend Mikhail. He can be just a normal person. Give me an average person. If I create the right environment, if I learn him, for example, to appreciate classical music by teaching him an instrument like the violin or the piano, if I, instead of just make him listen to propaganda, I make him listen to a logical thought. We call it in French. There's a word for that in English also. But it's a thinking you can follow. You know, it's one thing, then the next, and then there comes the conclusion. It's something that makes sense and something you can think about. And I give him that, something logical, instead of just giving him nonsense. For him, it will be normal. When he goes in a bar and he hears stupid things all day long, he would say, "Man, I'm not the smartest guy on earth, but there's really, really something wrong with the people I'm sitting next to here. I need to get out of the freak show really, really fast because that scares me. That's dangerous. My dad never speaks to me like this. In my family, nobody speaks like this. What's the crap I'm seeing here all day long?" So all I want to tell you is that people give me an average person. He doesn't have to have a high IQ, and I make whatever you want out of him, as long as I can create the right environment where the seeds will grow. Now,
But
of course,
you wouldn't
not.
want that. I think you want to change.
Of course, there are people with whom that will work better, and the result will be better, and people who it will work a little less. But nobody will be dumbed down, and nobody will act, talk, or behave like the masses do nowadays. I think that's something that they do on purpose, because it's easier to rule people who have no moral and no principles they follow. People, you can tell them whatever. You tell them go use the nuclear bomb in 2 cities in Japan, where there's no military base or anything else, just kill thousands and thousands of people. They do it. And they don't ask themselves any question. They don't have any more thinking about that. Some get PSD, but that's just because they saw if they are high in the plane and they just have to drop a bomb, well, they never see the victims, so they don't care.
You know, libraries are in every city center. Someone could just, well, every person, every day of their life could just walk into a library and start reading Stoic literature and philosophy. People just don't want to do it. So I don't think it's that they're forced into, or people are hiding Mozart from them. No, people playing concert everywhere around the world all the time, and people don't want to go listen to it, most people. So I think the thing is, yes, if you find someone and they're interested, sure, you could change them. But I think the difficulty is there has to be something within to want to change, to want something different. And I think most people don't, right? So most people, I think there's also this saying, you can only give advice when someone asks for it in a way. So, most people, if I sat on a poker table and just told people, you did this wrong, you did this, most people wouldn't want to listen to it. They first have to seek out something, to be open for it. I think most people would just be like, you could even do it for free. You could even pay for people that, hey, I'm going to teach you about right way of living and philosophy and what's good and stuff like that. I mean, it's the same with everything, right? You could go into a store or a market and get quite fresh fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. Most people still go to McDonald's. It's not, you could have a salad and even buy a salad. Most people won't go and buy a salad. It's even cheaper to go eat a salad somewhere. People still go to McDonald's, right? So I don't think there's lack of options for that. I think people have all the options. And actually, I disagree with you on this fact that you said you did everything on your own without any help, because you did not build the house you're in. You did not, there's people working somewhere to produce the heat, which keeps your building warm, right? If you go to a store, I don't know what you eat, but you didn't grow that food. There's people who work to grow that food. The clothes you wear, the computer you use to keep internet, electricity running. So I would say you've been supported tremendously by society to do what you are able to do. And if you lived 5,000 years ago in a forest somewhere, you wouldn't even have access to the tools or to write a book. You wouldn't have time to write a book if you need to go out to get food or grow something in your garden, and then you need to keep your house warm or even build a house to begin with, and all these things, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, I do think we shouldn't undervalue the system support as it is, I think.
No, I don't. But all my questions go to AI. Okay? I ask AI questions and question, and he finds me the answer. And I check that what he does is not hallucinating, and then I make something out of it. Yeah, but it's not the guy on university. It's not my neighbor. I have one neighbor, he's a professor at the university where I came. He's not teaching me anything that helps me. The thing is, the only thing I want to say is I agree. Of course, I depend on the world I'm in. And of course, I'm grateful for the things I get. Also for all the sages that came in front of me and taught me Stoicism. I'm very grateful for all that. The point is, some people get pushed by the system. And I did send you one message about Britney Spears. And she's somebody like this. You get pushed, they get selected. And then there gets enough money injected, and they teach her how to do one or two tricks on stage, and she just does it. It's not that she has a huge talent. She does not. Not her, not any of the other ones. Okay? They get just pushed by the system because they know that they will make a lot of money out of it. And I will never get pushed by the system because what I say goes against the system. And the system will never push somebody in front that criticizes the system. That will not happen. You don't see that in North Korea, you don't see that in China, and you don't see that here. There's never somebody on stage who goes directly against the system and explain to people why they are bad and they should not cooperate with a system that they cannot morally endorse. They cannot morally accept because the horrors are just undescribable by the system. Now, not everybody gets all the violence in their face straight away, but it's around everybody. Don't do what they say no, and if you're the only one, they will crush you very, very hard. But a guy like me, he never gets any space on air. And somebody like Britney Spears, well, she gets pushed very, very hard by the system. And it's very lucrative. She makes 700 millions, which is very nice. But then she's so stupid that she spends it on bullshit. And a couple of years, it takes her less time to spend 660 millions than to make 700 millions. And then she's at zero again. And normally, generational wealth, which is something like 700 million, that normally lasts 3 generations. Then it's over. The first generation makes the wealth. The second starts spending it, and the third ends up with nothing and is then broke like everybody else. And that doesn't have to be like this. If you would get some education, if you would learn something, try to improve, try to understand, make an effort, talk to the right people, then it doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to waste it all and end up broke like everybody else. The difference with Britney is that she's the first generation and she might end up broke. Others, at least, it lasts 3 generations, but she's apparently so dumbed down that she managed to lose it all in 1 generation. And Michael Jackson was the same, So a lot of people go through the same path, but it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. And you don't have to be smart. You don't have to have the same eye than your friend Mikhail. That's not required. You just have to start thinking and asking yourself the right questions. And you will improve if you do it on a constant basis, if you don't stop, if you keep on always asking yourself questions and always trying to improve. If you don't give up, it will work. I'll let you conclude on that. And afterwards, if you agree, we can take a look at some hands or do something else related to poker.
Well, one thing that's on my mind is, whenever you spend or lose money, it's not like it's lost. Other people get it. So in that way, what's the problem if they had 700 million and bought a lot of stuff or just lost it in the market? Someone won that money, right? So just like they got their money from concert tickets or music sales, that money is going back to the people who make their Ferraris or make their designer clothes and things like that. So I think it's also, yeah, it's how much value you put to wealth or money. I think it's like, why is it so important that the second generation or third generation gets a lot of money at start? I think you could say it's not necessary. So everyone could start from nothing and still have a good life. So, and work really isn't the worst thing in the world, right? So I think a lot of people, they have money or don't. It doesn't really matter if they don't, they just work more. And if you have money, that can even be bad. You might get lazy, you might get complacent, you might start to do some. I think it's that thing that whenever someone has a big fortune and then goes broke, they go broke, but a lot of people benefited from them going broke. So a lot of people, I mean, that money goes somewhere, right? It's, if someone has 700 million on bank account and now they have zero, then that means this money went somewhere. Someone else has part of that money then. So I don't think it's I think it's also what you value in life. And you could, like, is it important to die with a fortune, or really it doesn't matter if you die with zero? There's a billionaire, Bill Perkins, who is also in poker world, who wrote this book, To Die with Zero, and how he's now stopped making money and he's actively trying to spend everything he has before he dies. So his point is, what's the point of just holding on to money? If you die, it's like it goes to the next generation, but you might as well just give it to people while you're alive. So whenever you spend on something, that's what you're making someone else have that money, which they could do something.
Okay. Can I ask you one last question on that subject? But it's a very hard question to answer. So my question is, you did read a part of my book, maybe my entire book now. I don't know how far you are with it. But my question is, I talk about money, I think, in that book. And according to me, what is money and what is it for? And how should you live with it? Or what should you do with it, according to me? Did you read my book? So maybe you remember, or you thought about it. Maybe you didn't see that subject until now?
I think I haven't got to that point in the book yet.
Okay. Well, then I should ask you another time again. I can give you a small answer, but I would have liked it more if you give me the answer instead of me giving.
I can say what I think, and you can say if you think very differently. I think money is just what society owes you, right? So it's like a bill that says what you're being owed, and it's like, and that's that. And if you have a lot of money, that means society owes you a lot of favors. You could exchange that for a private jet, you could exchange that for food, but it's something you usually earn it by offering something to society. So for example, Britney Spears offered the music, the concerts, which a lot of people enjoyed, and then as a return, she got favors from the society, which, as I see, it's just money. And then she used a lot of those favors instead of trying to reinvest or build on that. Yeah, that's how I see money.
Yeah, my idea about it, it's not wrong, the answer you gave, but you gave your answer, what you think money is. And my question was what I think money is and how you should use it. So it's not the same question. You didn't answer the same thing, but I understand what you say. It's like you do something for society, and in exchange, society has to do something for you. That's how you see money.
Yes. Basically, yes. I mean, if you're self-sufficient, why would you even need money? You wouldn't need favors from anyone, right? If someone's already doing very well, why would they need money? You only need money if you want like a favor back, right? If you want something back from, let's say you had everything already in abundance. Well, why would you need anything for money then? I don't know what else to say about it. It's good if, and I feel like if people get into debt or they get into problems, then it's also very simple that they're asking too much favors before they're actually ready to offer something back for it, right? So if you take on a loan, what essentially a person does then is give me all these favors ahead of time and I will work for you later for that, right? So help me society now, and now later I will help you. And people who get in trouble usually do it they don't think it through really. I feel like they want a nice new car, they take on a big loan, but they don't really think that it's a favor and they have to pay for that with their work. They have to do something now for society. And if they're not very skilled or valuable laborer, then it might take them a lot of time to do that work. And at some point, it might be that there's so many bills and favors they have to account for that, hey, we gave you this car, you promised to pay us this month and this month. And a lot of people like that. And then suddenly people go broke. But I think it's impossible to go broke if you never ask for more that you give, right? So if people wouldn't be so eager to loan and ask for favors. I mean, to me, I see money in general as like a bonus. I don't think it's necessary. Just this, like any money is a bonus in this way. So even to have no money, you can still live. I mean, a lot of societies lived back in the day without money. Animals live without money. I don't know what else I can say.
Yeah, we can stop here. I just want to give you an example or two about antiquity. And I have one that is very interesting. So in antiquity, slaves at the time of Seneca and before that, slaves could buy their freedom. If they managed to save up enough money, they give it to the slave master. And once the slave master gets the money, he would free them in exchange of the money. Because the slave master likes money. And if you give him enough, then he will send you free. Sorry, but for me, it's very funny because I think it's cynical. To me, money has something to do with freedom. And also at that time, they consider that money is necessary to have some clothes over your body, because if not, you would get too cold, and to feed yourself and have a roof over your head. And I think that's what money is for the basic necessity of life. Nowadays, I add a little electricity, internet, and one or two gadgets, but I still think it's for that. And I want to give you the last example of Seneca, because I had to do some research about Seneca. Because Hollywood did make a hit piece on Seneca where they invented a lot of crap that has nothing to do with what really happened. There is no source that says that any of the allegations are true. They're all made up. They say, well, it's artistic license. No, it has nothing to do with artistic license. It's just that you hate virtue and you hate anything that is good. So you choose Seneca and then you throw a lot of dirt on him and you make up a lot of crap. But since I wanted to correct that and say what really, really happened, I had to do a lot of research. And there's one thing I've learned and I didn't know before, is that, Seneca, there were like three important people at the court of Neron. There was his mother, Agrippina, his mother. There was a Stoic guard of the Praetorian Guard, so one of his bodyguards at the head of security. He was also a very respectable Stoic man. And then there was Seneca. And as long as the three were alive, they could maintain the madness of a little. But he started killing his mother first. He put her on a ship and sunk the ship. But unfortunately, she made it to the shore. Because she survived, he was angry about that. So he sent an assassin after her. And then she is said to have pulled off her clothes, show her belly, and told the assassin, strike there. So she probably did it to show that she is a woman and she gave birth. And that's the place they will choose to kill her. But that's just the first one. There's a high probability he killed the head of the guard, the Stoic man. I think he was called Brutus, but maybe his name was different. But he was a very respectable Stoic man. We are not sure, because if he wasn't poisoned, maybe he died of lung cancer. But there's a high probability that he was poisoned. And then Seneca lost all help at the court. He knew he was alone and he has no chance to maintain him in some kind of normal way of living and behaving. So he asked to retire and he went outside of Rome and he offered a big part of his fortune to the treasury, half or even more of his fortune to the treasury. He said to Neron, I'll give you a lot of money, just let me go. Please let me go. But he knew that if he leaves and he doesn't want to stick around, that is because they're condemning him. So he took it personal. He let him go, he took the money. But a couple of years later, there was a conspiracy. They tried to kill him. And then one slave said that he did meet Seneca, and that was enough to then ask him to kill himself. But here again, you see that money was necessary so he could live, try to live, to keep on living in retirement. So money can be very, very important. And you have to use it wisely. Seneca tried to do that by taking his retirement and getting away from political life and letting the madness happen without him to save his life and also the life of his wife, Paulina, and all his slaves. He tried to be alive longer for the people who are close to him. And, well, it worked up to a certain extent. But you see that money is very, very important in a lot of things, for a lot of things in your life. And yes, you can live, survive, and try to find a solution like a gig work or something else. But most people don't want to do that. Most people would really enjoy if they can do something else. So I still think, like in antiquity, that it is closely related in our system to freedom. And if you want to buy your freedom, well, you have to have enough money for that. Does it make any sense to you? Do you approve of it a little or not?
It does make sense, although I'd conclude it differently, that the more money you have, the less freedom. That the more rich you are, the more tightly you are connected with the system. And in your story, they won't even allow you to leave the system, right? If you're rich enough, you're so connected to everything that it's not so easy to just say that I want to leave tomorrow. You're not allowed to do that in that way. But to me, it's still, freedom, as I see freedom, is self-sufficiency. And if someone's self-sufficient, they don't need the society. They're able to live on their own without anything from anyone. And if someone's like that, then money is worthless to them. So I like that point that it's connected to freedom, but I think it's the opposite, that the more money you have, the more you are in this world where, for example, if someone's like a king or a billionaire, everything in their life has to do with money. Like they have cleaners and workers and chefs and all these people around them. And for them, money is everything, but also in terms of freedom, they're dependent on all these people, right? The king cannot stay warm or safe in a castle on their own. So in many ways, they're the person who's the least free because they're dependent on the army, the ministers, the court. All these people have to be happy in some sense for the king to be able to live as a king. But if you're just a guy living in a forest who doesn't need anything from society, then I would say that is freedom, where you're not dependent on anyone's wish or will in that way. So I think the billionaires, they can't even go anywhere without their drivers, if they go to their private jet, they need pilots, they need stewardesses, they need runways, they need the airports, they need all these infrastructures and systems. And if someone's self-sufficient, then they don't need any connection with freedom. But I see it in the opposite way, that the more you're dependent on money, the less freedom you have.
Yeah, if I compare it to a poker game, what I want to stress out is that you have to use it wisely at the right moment. You don't go all in whenever you want. And you also need to not make stupid mistakes. And the issue with people, and it goes a little with what you say, is that they get too attached to money because they ask so much of it. Private jets, employees, villas that cost more than 15, 20, 30 millions, and so on. And if they have one, well, then they want one more. They have one private jet, they want the second one. And the thing is, they ask so much of it that their fortune cannot handle it. They just ask too much. They always want too much out of it. And they get too attached to it. And that's very dangerous because it's just a tool. And as a tool, you must be able to sacrifice it when the moment comes to sacrifice it. You must be able to say, okay, now it's the moment to leave and have nothing more to do with Néron, because it gets way too dangerous. He killed me and he killed his mother. He killed the guy from the guard. I'm alone there. There's no way I can say anything to him without being executed straight away. I have to leave now. And it's the moment to sacrifice a huge part of my fortune because the moment has come to use it wisely. And you cannot do that if you're too dependent on it. So It's just a tool, and you have to use the tool. It's like if you're a general in the army, and you care too much about your soldiers. Well, they have to die for you. That's what they exist. A shogun in Japan who is fighting for his life and his small kingdom in Japan before it was unified. He had to send people out to fight for the life, and he know that some will not come back. The most brave, the one he likes the most, won't come back. But he must be able to sacrifice them. And he also did have to have enough courage that once the war turns against him and he loses everything, well, then he has to commit harakiri. And he did it, and his wife did it, and his kid, if he was of age, of reason, 14 years old, a little beyond that, he would do the same instantly, without hesitating. But if you get too much attached to your body or too much attached to your wealth, then you cannot act as you are required to act when the moment comes. And that's the issue with most people. They get too much attached to it because they enjoy their pleasures and their privileges just too much. And then they end up doing what they don't want to do. Thank you a lot for listening.
With that, I think it's a good point, and I think it's good to do these things where you go camping, or you what's it called? You also do it when you're fasting, right? Things like that. So the more simple you live, the less. Imagine what bills someone like a billionaire would have every month. For every villa, they probably get a service fee, all the things to have it running. They probably have to give back to society every month a few million, or they're in debt because they own so many things, and there's so much that it costs to maintain or own these things. But if you live in a simple way, then people don't ask from you so much every month. And then also the pressure isn't as much from them.
Yeah, you're right. You're perfectly right. That's wise. Thank you for adding that. Can we take a look at a couple of hands?
Yes, we can. Yeah, nice discussing this with you. Interesting. So for poke an idea in mind, how many hands are
we? Don't have to review all of them. 11.
Okay, good. I think that's good. And the exercise I want to do is for you to tell me the average hand of the opponent. So what do I mean by average? Average is if you would rank all the hands the opponent has in order. So pre-flop it would be best hand aces, second best kings, and worst hand 2-7 offsuit or 2-3 off. And then average is somewhere in the middle. I think it's also called the median, just that, because why it's important is because that is the most likely hand the opponent has, somewhere around that middle. So of course they can have aces, or they could have 2-3 off, but more often than not they have something that's in the middle, something like king 3 or queen 4 or jack 5 or 10-6 or something that's not good, not bad. I want to do that exercise based on the action that has happened, right? So the average hand, if someone goes all in, won't be king 4 anymore or queen 6. The average hand at that point might be something like pocket jacks or even stronger than that, right? So if someone went all in with aces, kings, and queens, what would their average be then?
Kings.
It would be kings, exactly. And I want to go through these hand histories, for example, when you're betting or when you're calling a bet, to think about that. And it's a good thing to have in mind, as in, what average means is the scary thing. I think just the same with society. I think there's this joke about IQ, right? That the average IQ is 100. And the scary part is that means half the people have an IQ lower than 100, right? So the same that you could take an average wage or a median wage. Well, that means half the people, every second person you see, is earning less than that. And in poker, it's easy to think about the scary stuff or always think the opponent's bluffing. But sometimes with the average, it helps to understand how dangerous it is, right? So maybe you have something that's pretty good, but it's not the best hand, but your opponents lose and you think their average hand is quite low, that they play this way, then it's not a big problem if sometimes they have a better hand, but most of the time they have worse. So it's not very, I think this concept isn't very complicated, but the complicated part is to figuring out what the average hand is. And so we'll try to go through this process together, if that sounds good for you.
Yeah, great.
All right, king, queen. Oh, you make a big fold here, yes. And it's a tricky spot. If we go all in, we have a lot of opponents, and we're not going to be sure everyone will fold. Yeah, I guess why didn't you... Well, let's start with the exercise here, right? What would you think the average hand of player one? So something you can start with what's the strongest hand, and then start with what's his weakest hand, you think, here? And then average is often somewhere in the middle of the two.
Well, I don't think he has pocket because he only limped, so that would not be his strongest hand.
Okay, that's already a good start for us, right? So if his very strongest hand won't be aces and kings and queens, maybe his strongest hand here would be something like pocket sevens. How does that sound to you?
I think it's too strong. Strongest, you mean strongest?
Yes,
Strongest?
It's not average, yes, the strongest.
Yeah, pocket seven maybe, yeah.
Okay, and for unpaired hand, it's probably gonna be an ace, but maybe not the biggest ace. So his strongest hand is maybe something like ace nine, maybe something like that.
Yeah, makes
Maybe
sense.
ace, okay. And then his worst hand, he probably won't have 3-2 offsuit. So his worst hand would be likely, what would you say?
Well, maybe pocket twos. I don't
I
know.
mean, for a pocket pair, I think he could have twos. And for an unpaired hand,
Well, king jack offsuit.
okay, so you think he's actually quite tight, right?
Or maybe king eight offsuit. I don't know. I wouldn't play king eight offsuit, so I have no idea what he's doing.
Yes, I can see that. So maybe it's tough to tell, but even the examples we went through, does king queen, where does it seem to compare to his hand? Is it around the average? Is it slightly stronger, slightly weaker?
His average.
Well, we didn't exactly figure it out, but we don't know for sure, right? But if someone limps, like you said, it's usually not a very strong hand, but it's not a very weak hand either.
And there are a lot of people, unfortunately, who like to play it sneaky. Huh?
Okay, that could mean that he could have actually the strongest hand could be aces then, right?
Yeah. If he wants to play it sneaky, yeah, he could have aces.
Okay,
So it's very hard, the question you ask. But what would you say his average is? King jack offsuit, king 10 offsuit? What is his average?
Yeah, that would be the
King
case.
king 8, I don't think it's king 8 his average. King 8 offsuit, I don't think that is his average. What would you say? And I don't think jacks would be his average also. So what would be his average?
Exactly. So I think something like king 10 offsuit is a pretty good guess. I think people can limp something like a6 off.
So king 10 offsuit, that's not great. I only have king queen offsuit. So he's a little below me, okay? But the bad news is that there's also player one, and I also have to worry about player one. So my only choice is to go all in. But if they're stubborn, both of them, or if one of them has something good, well, then I'm out. And against two players like this, I think that one of them has an ace. So
there's only one limper in this. Player 6 is the big blind, and player 1 is the first to enter. Yes, I mean, if the question is about all in, then it seems pretty close, right? So yeah, it's player 1 could call you with an ace. He could call you with a pair. He has a lot of chips. I agree. All in seems dangerous. And also, player 3, player 4, player 5, player 6, any of them will sometimes have a better hand than king. So I agree that all in seems a bit too much. But we could also match player 1 and call, which essentially what a call means is, I think my hand is doing okay against your hands. And if his average is king 10, that also means he has half the time weaker hands than that. So I think you could consider a call. Although the downside is someone else then might go all in or raise, right? So, and there's a lot of opponents to worry about. But king queen is a pretty good hand to just fold. And I think you can afford this one big blind.
I know, I didn't like folding king queen, but I told myself it's too risky to do an all in. And limping I didn't like because, as you say, either somebody goes all in, then I have to fold. And if that's not happening, then the other possibilities that I get 2 or 3 opponents. And then my king-queen doesn't look at all that good.
Well, unless you hit a king or a queen on the flop, then it would look pretty good. But yes, I mean, I would limp here. I would call him.
Okay, thank you. Want to see what I had?
Yes, let's play this hand to the end. Yeah. Oh, all right. And on this flop, what would I do?
Well, the flop does nothing for me, does it? I can make a straight, maybe.
Not really.
So what is...
Three spades on the board, right? There's a lot
Yeah,
of danger.
I think I would have folded. I would have folded because, yeah, it's too dangerous. So
Exactly.
I don't think it's anything good.
That means I would have lost one more big blind, right?
Yeah, but if you say I can put it on the table, then I can afford it.
Yeah. Well, this case, yeah. All right.
What did you want to add? You wanted to add something?
No, nothing else. Just to be very results oriented, this time your play saved you one big blind, right?
Yeah, but result oriented is not very important. I mean, what happens on the flop is not really important. What is important that we make the right decision.
Yes.
So king 3 suited.
Yeah, I like that. Half a big blind, already more than 4 big blinds in the pot. Suited king. I like your play. Good. So on this board, I really want to talk about this board. So it's a limp pot. Do you think your hand's stronger than average hand on this?
What is the question? I didn't hear it.
Oh, do you think you have an above average hand on this board?
Yes.
I think so as well. However, there are some dangers on this board. Right? Someone could have a queen, someone could have a better king. Now, they won't always have it, but when they do have it, you could be in a lot of trouble. Now I want to think one street ahead. If the turn card comes, are a lot of bad turn cards for you?
An ace is bad. The rest is okay.
I agree. An ace is bad, the rest is okay. So that means that your hand needs a lot of protection or doesn't need a lot of protection.
Does need a lot of protection.
Exactly. And we don't want to get all in here. We don't want to play a big pot. And really, if you think of a value, can you get any value here? If you bet, will a weaker hand call? If someone has 7-6 or ace-5, will they call on this board?
No.
Not very likely exactly. However, you could get value if they improve on the turn or river. Let's say the turn comes as 7 and big blind has a 7. Now you could actually win a bet out of them. So in this case, I think it's very, very strongly recommended that you don't bet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you want me to give them some time to catch up.
As well as for you to, and you can allow that because there is very little risk on the turn. Only an ace is a risk. And the secondary reason is it's not really a hand we want to make a big pot. And if you start betting now, the pot starts to grow. And really, by the end of this hand, how big pot would you be comfortable the pot being?
Well, if there's no ace, I would be comfortable with a lot.
You would be comfortable because the thing is, if you bet and the other player matches your bet, they also need to have something, right?
Yeah.
So.
But then I can stop betting on the
Yeah, what do you mean by a lot? I mean, even if they do make a pair on the turn and it's a low pair, would they be comfortable with a big pot? Both parties need to be comfortable for that.
Okay. The idea is I cannot make a lot of money with this because they probably will fold, and if they don't fold, well, then they have something better.
Yes, something like that, exactly. So I think comfortable here is if pot will be something like 8 big blinds, maybe.
So you want me to bet only 1 or 2 big blinds every time and see what comes? Not now. But on the turn, on the river, you want me to bet only 1 or 2 big blinds. So it's so low that maybe they will call.
That seems like a good plan, yes. All right, so someone else started betting already. So if you think of an average hand that would bet here, let's start with what's the strongest hand that you would think would bet? Well, that's not the strongest hand on this board, actually, but it is a strong hand.
Yeah, the strongest hand is a queen, if he has a queen.
Queen, exactly. Now, they just checked in the big blind. Could they have queen 2 off?
Yes.
They have queen 3.
No,
queen 4.
I don't think so. Queen 2 off.
Because no one raised.
They were on the big blind. Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, then they can, yeah.
They could have any queen. They could have queen 5, queen 6, queen 7. A lot of ways for them to have a queen. Could they have a king? Yes, they could. Are most kings stronger or weaker than your king?
Probably stronger.
I mean, unless they have king 2 or king 3, they would have a stronger king. And that could matter. If they have king 7, then it could come down to who has a higher king. So whenever they have a queen or a king, we're in trouble. But we're trying to find the average hand here. So they have to bet something weaker than a king 3 also. What kind of weaker hands could they bet here? What would make sense on this board against 2 opponents? Is there a lot of hands that come to mind, like flush draws, or is there a lot of, I guess start with, are there a lot of hands weaker than a king 3? That would make sense for them to bet.
You want me to say that maybe he's betting with a straight draw?
Okay, that would be something, right? So what would be the straight draw here?
It would be 10 and a jack.
10 jack, exactly. Now, what do you think there's more in the deck? So we're thinking of an average hand, right? We lose to queen 2, queen 3, queen 4, queen 5, queen 6, queen 7, queen 8, queen 9, queen 10, queen jack. We lose to king 4, king 5, king 6, king 7, king 8, king 9, king 10, king jack. And at the moment, we're beating a straight draw like jack 10. So where do you think the average is? Is the average going to be nearer the straight draw or nearer the king or a queen?
I'm not sure he bets with a straight draw.
Well, that's even worse, right? Because that's one of his weakest hands he would bet, right? But even if he did, even if he always bet with jack 10, which there seems to be more of, for him to have some king or queen, or just to have specifically that straight draw?
It's more likely that he has a king, queen.
How much more likely than jack 10?
A lot likelier.
Yes, a lot likely. Something like 10 times more likely. So if we think about the average hand here, his average hand could be something like king 8 here.
Yeah.
Based on this discussion, what sort of action makes sense for you to do?
To fold.
To fold. And I think that would be good here. We could see what happens on the turn, but really nothing will change for us, right? I mean, there won't be bad cards for us on the turn, but there won't be good either. If it comes a 7, an 8, a 10, a jack, a 5, a 4, I mean, the turn doesn't change anything. So the turn won't change anything. He will bet again, or he won't bet again. Okay, that would be better. But if he bets again, we have exactly the same situation on the turn. And the turn bet will probably be even bigger. And your hand won't, you have a made hand. The turn and river can only bring trouble unless you hit a king. But it's not very likely that you will make a king on the turn or river. So even if he doesn't have a king at the moment, there's only 8% that you make it by the river. 4% on the turn. So yes, I would strongly advise you to fold.
Okay, thank you, Norman.
It's a good hand. I think it's not very special. I think you played it how most people would. And I think it's so good we had this average hand discussion today, because hopefully that can show how a good hand, we had a plan. Actually, our plan was, if no one wants to bet, maybe you would have bet a little bit on this 5. And then a little bit on this jack. But once he started betting and we think about his average hand, then most of that stuff is better than king 3. So I hope you found it valuable and helpful.
Yeah, I did. Is it over? Or do we look at one more hand?
I think we can move on with the next hand, yes.
Okay, thank you. So 9, 10 suited.
Yeah, I don't like this at all. So do you remember the king-queen hand where you didn't go all in? The first hand we reviewed today.
Yeah, I didn't go all in, but I had better hand. And now I have a crappy hand and I go all in. But the difference is that I'm 6 big blinds,
Okay. Now
And-
the king-queen hand.
And look, I'm facing player 8 has 64 big blinds. Player 2 has 41. Player 3
Hello.
has 23. Player 4 has 26. And
I'm
player
aware.
6, look, and 6 big blinds is really crappy. With what
I'm aware.
can I go in with 6 big?
I am aware. Will you allow me to do a bit of coaching here?
Yeah,
What did player 5 do?
he went only for 2.
Is our hand stronger or weaker than his average hand?
Probably weaker.
Probably. So you think more than half the time he has, I would say we're considerably weaker hand than he does on average. I know we don't have a lot of big blinds, but with 6 big blinds, how many more hands can you see?
A couple. But the thing is, I need so much, Norman, to enter the bubble. Do you realize that? So if I double 2 big blinds and then I get 4 big blinds again, that's very cute. But look at everybody else. I'm still way away from having any chance to enter the bubble.
You did not allow me to make my point.
And 10-9 suited, well, 10-10 would be better. But 10-9 is still a quite strong hand.
Mr.
Yeah, Norman. So you want me to fold. But the thing is, the folding game is only good if I still have a chance. I'm listening. Tell me, Norman.
How many hands can we see with 6 big blinds?
Maybe 4 or 5 hands.
4 or 5, then you would be big blind, small blind. And if you have to fold those, then you would go down to how many big blinds?
I don't know. How do I know? I don't think you can see much hands. And I don't know how much they will take every time. And then the ante or whatever goes up. So
that's, I think, 0.15 every hand.
Maybe 5 hands. Is it much more or much less? I think it's a little more maybe, but not much. How much is it, Norman? I don't know.
Can you ask the question again?
The question is, how many hands can I see, if I fold every hand until I have to go all in? Tell me and I will calculate. So if I have 6 divided by 0.5, it says 12, but it's never 12 hands. I did make 646 divided by 0.5. It says 12, but it's never, I don't think I can play 12 hands.
Why did you divide by 0.5?
Didn't you say that it costs 0.5 for the ante or whatever? 1.5. Yeah, but still, I'm not playing 20 hands with 6 big blinds.
No, you're not. That's why I want to go through this step by step, right? So firstly, how many hands before you're the big blind?
There are 1, 2, 3.
No.
There's 1 hand for the big blind.
It goes the other way.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Next, yes.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5th hand, you're already big blind. So you get 4 more hands until you're big blind. And each of these hands, you would lose 0.15. So next hand, if you fold this, you would have 631. Then you would have 616. Then you would have 601. And then you would have 586. And then you would go to big blind. If you fold that, you would have 486, actually 466, 471, and so on. So yes, it's not going to be something like 20 hands. And you're right that if you wait the next 7 hands, you will have, 7's too little, but if you wait something like next 10 hands, you would have something like 3 big blinds, 3 point something. And if you double up 3, you would be back to where you are. I agree with these things, right? I'm not arguing with you, and I see everyone has a lot of chips. And I do realize that you will probably have to go try to get all in as quickly as possible, but that doesn't mean we're going to go in a very bad situation. And in this case, player 5 has a better hand. You have also 3 more opponents. So to me, you're just going into death here. You're just being like, I don't want to wait for next hand. Now, will you get a better chance in the next 4 hands before you get to big blind? Will one of your next 4 hands be higher than a 10?
Maybe, but the kicker might be very bad.
That is true, but here's the thing. Would you go all in rather if someone has raised or someone hasn't raised?
Someone hasn't raised, but...
So if next hand you get exactly the same 2 cards, you get exactly the same hand next hand, but that time no one has raised, would you rather go all in this hand or next hand?
Next hand.
So you see, we don't even need to get a better hand. Although you will get a better hand, very likely in the next 4 or 5 hands. It's not very difficult to get a king something, ace something, queen something, a pair. All these things do happen. So, and even if you don't get a better hand, you get an opportunity where no one raised. Why is it the better opportunity if no one has raised?
Because they might think they have something good and will fold. But the thing is, they only do that when I can put some money on the table. With 6 big blinds, they will just call. With 3 big blinds, they will just call because it makes so little difference to them.
Likely they will call, but they won't call if they have 5-3 offsuit. And that's possible. Sometimes everybody gets crappy hands. But in this case, you already know player 5 doesn't have a crappy. So
Okay.
in this case, there's no chance. To me, this is a mistake. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. But Norman, it is very hard to fight when you don't believe that you can make it. So I'm telling myself, maybe I get lucky with my 10-9, and then I'm back at 12. Now, with 12, there's a chance that maybe I get lucky one more time, and then I'm back at 24. But without that happening, and 24 wouldn't be great on this board, but it's better than 6. But even for that, I need to double twice. And now if I play the waiting game, yeah, I can do that. But my chance of entering the bubble here are like 1 or 2% maximum. And if I start playing the waiting game, they just drop down. But okay, I understand. I have to play the waiting game even if I only have 1 or 2% chance of entering the bubble.
Yeah, I want to make a joke that if you don't believe, listen to a speech from an American president, right? They know how to say empty words that make people believe, right? They will say that you will get your chance and life will get better and you just have to wait and you never know your next hand might be a. Sometimes we need this encouraging, right? And you never know. Your next hand could have been aces. It could have been aces. It could have been queens. And I agree with you. It's tough to wait like this when most likely you won't make bubble anyway. But you don't have to. I'm not asking you to wait for infinity longer. Just wait a couple more hands. Just try to wait like 4 or 5 hands more and try to find at least a spot where someone didn't raise. At least someone where there isn't already under the gun raising.
Okay,
right?
great.
Yes.
I agree,
We
no.
need to replay how it went.
I will try to do that next time.
Yes. And he had something like an average hand for him, right? So, and yeah, I mean, it happens. We live and we learn. I think we all make mistakes. So I know I make mistakes. So I hope you take it in a good way. That it happens.
Okay, so now pocket 10, and let's see what happens. I go for 3 big blinds.
Yeah, where would you say your hand? Is it your average hand? Is it above your?
It's above my.
Is it better than king queen?
Yes.
But there's a but there. What's the but?
If a king or a queen comes, it's not good anymore.
And how often does a king or a queen come?
24% of the time.
No. On the flop 30, but by the river something like 45, close to 50. King, queen, and 10 is about equal hands, just like pocket 7s and king, queen are about equal, just like ace, king, and queens are about equal. So
yeah. But the thing is, it's 6 outs for king, queen, isn't it?
Yes, and 5 opportunities to hit that. Here's my point. Your hand isn't really much better than something like king, jack, king, queen, ace, jack, queen, jack.
My mistake is that I made 6 times 4, but that's once we have the flop. And now we don't have the flop, so I have to add some probability for the flop. That's why it's more.
Flop is 30, so you add that 24% to 30, and total chance is 45, something around that.
So 30 plus 24, then makes 54.
Oh, 54, yes. Yeah, my bad. 54, yes. But I'm thinking of king, queen against pocket 10s. And pocket 10s is a favorite, but it's a slight favorite. And even if king, queen makes a king or a queen 54, pocket 10s sometimes still beats king, queen, right? You can hit a 10 and make a better hand.
Norman, it's just that king, queen, I don't have the impression that 50% of the time it hits a king or a queen. I don't have that impression. It might be correct from a mathematical standpoint. From experience, I would say it's less than.
Because you don't always see all 5 cards, right? Sometimes you only see the flop. So,
okay, great. Yeah, you're correct. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Norman.
I'm saying you have an above average, but you don't have you don't have a hand that's a lot above average.
Okay. So let's see
what's the weakest pair you open that position.
I'm under the gun 2, under the gun 1. So my weakest pair is pocket 4.
Pocket 4, right? So what's the average there from 4s to aces?
Maybe 9?
Exactly, it's 9s, right? So tens is slightly higher. And if you look at your unpaired hands, a lot of these are 2 cards higher than tens, which are about the same strength. If you have queen jack, you have about the same strength. If you have king queen, about the same strength. So all I'm saying is tens is good, it's above average, but it's nothing too special. And when you opened it, how many opponents you had?
I had 7 opponents.
You had 7. So why I'm saying this is I don't want us to overvalue our tens and be like, this is the best thing in the world, right? It's good.
I agree with that.
Good. Good. Okay. Now on this board, what's the immediate thing we're worried about?
An 8.
However, do you think someone having an 8 would be like near the average, or would it be more an extreme, like more of an unlikely scenario?
Okay.
All right. So that means our tens at the moment is above or below average.
I say unlikely because they should play my range, which is under the gun 1. And there are not a lot of 8s. There's just pocket 8s that they should play that range. So unless they have pocket 8s, they shouldn't play it. And even pocket A, I don't think they should have called with pocket 8s. So I don't think they have an 8.
Well, a big blind can call a bit wider because they get discount, right?
Against 2 people who already showed a lot of strength?
Yes. They had to call 2 more big blinds, even though he raised 3. So they could call if they had ace-8 suited. They could call if they had something like 9-8 suited, like a nice 8. So, but I mean, in general, we agree on this. An 8 is quite unlikely, right? Now, so our hand is above average. Do you agree on that?
Yes.
Okay, now when we talked about the king 3 hand where board was king queen queen, there wasn't really much to worry about in terms of bad cards on the turn. In this case, does it seem like there's few bad cards or many bad cards on the turn?
Many bad cards.
Exactly. Anything higher than a 10 is bad. Even a 5 could be bad. Some lower cards could make straights. So there's many bad cards. That means our hand needs protection or means it doesn't need protection.
It needs protection.
Good. So it looks like we have the best hand more often than not. We need to protect our hand. And really our goal here would be to make something like ace jack or king queen default, because we don't want them to have a chance to hit their king or a queen on the turn. So if you think about how big you should bet here, how big do you think you should bet for them to fold ace jack or king queen? Will 2 big blinds be enough?
I think I should bet 2/3 of the pot.
I like that. That's a pretty good one. So let's see what you did here. Okay, you go half pot. That's not bad, but you see a bigger bet here because we really want to push towards the fold. We don't want them to think like, well, I have ace jack, let's see the turn. That would be bad for us. So we really want them out of this and we get a safe win with our tens. But
Okay,
this
I
is
agree.
pretty good how it went. Okay, now let's pause. This is an important moment in poker which people undervalue. When someone calls your bet, immediately a turn card comes. But we shouldn't really think about the turn card. We should think about what when they call.
What they have.
What they have, exactly. On that board, 8-8-5, what would make sense to call?
Pocket jacks.
Okay, pocket jacks. But very simply, something like an 8 or a 5 would make sense to call, right?
Yes.
Okay, and now if they have a 5, do we need to keep on betting if they have a 5?
Yes.
Why?
Actually, no, we don't, because we would win even if we don't bet.
Exactly. If they have a 5, we're going to win this hand anyway. And if you bet, the 5 will likely be scared now and fold. So if they have a 5, or if they had something like ace jack, or maybe they had pocket 9s, pocket 7s, we don't have to keep on betting, we'll win anyway. And if they didn't, then they could have what? Then they could have something like an 8, and that would be bad for us. So first, let's see what the pair 8 does on the turn. Okay, now the question is, should we keep on betting?
Well, he's not showing any list in the pot.
We disagree on that. Just because he hasn't bet, no interest is a fold. No interest is a fold. He showed interest to call you when you raised 3 big blinds. He showed interest to call you when you bet half pot on the flop. You bet more than 5 big blinds, and he showed interest to continue for that. So even though he hasn't shown tremendous interest yet, that might be because he's a sneaky player like you call. But he has definitely showed interest. He's called you twice already.
Yeah. So you don't want me to bet and just see the river.
What happens if we bet here?
Well, maybe he has Jack.
Okay,
and
how many outs does this Jack have against us?
He would have 12 outs.
No, 12%, 6 outs.
Yeah, 6 outs.
12%, right? 12% is a little more than 1 in 9 times. Are you fine? Let's give him that. Let's give him 1 in 9 chance of hitting his ace or a jack. Wouldn't that be fair? Why do I want to give him a 1 in 9 chance to make an ace or a jack?
Why do I want to give him that chance? I don't know. Because you're scared that he has an 8 or a king.
Because if I'm wrong, exactly, if I'm wrong and he doesn't have ace or a jack, then we'll lose so many more chips by betting. And if you bet then hold, then he has just a 5. Or he has a low pair like pocket sixes. So in this case, if you really think about the hands he has, if he has something stupid like ace jack and he didn't fold on the flop, let him have that chance. But for you now, that's a big risk that you're taking. I don't like this. Yeah, I would slow down here. Yeah, and once he raised you all in, then you have to fold. So that moment, go to that moment when he raised you all in. Here, exactly, here. Wait, before, here, yes. Now, how long did you take with this decision? What would you think?
I don't take very long because I never know how much time I have left.
Well, if we take a moment here, what does it look like, his average hand? Is he showing interest in this pot?
Yes, he's showing it. So I'm probably beat, yeah.
How can you not be beat here?
Yeah, I agree.
So what should we do once he raised you on the turn?
When she goes all in or when he raises me?
That's the same thing, yes. When he raised you all in.
We should fold.
We should fold. Now, why don't people like to fold in that spot?
Because it wasn't so probable that he had an 8 and a king, well, maybe.
If he has a king, are you also in trouble?
Yes.
So doesn't matter even if he has an 8. A king will do here. But here's two comments on this. Click back before you called this. 17 big blinds, 16.88, and after you called, 8.6. Does it matter if you call or fold in this spot? Does it matter if you have 16.88 or 8?
Yes, it matters.
It matters, yes. Now I want to talk about the probability. Can you go all the way back to pre-flop when he called? All the way back to pre-flop. So all the way, yes, forward when you raised and it was on him. So here, is it, before he calls, is it probable he has an 8 at this moment?
I would say no.
Yes, he could have all sorts of hands. He could have ace 10, king jack, 10-9, pocket sevens. Not at all probably has an 8. Now let's see the flop when the decision was on him after you bet. So here, once you bet, and we already see 2 8s on the board, again, not probable, but the moment he called your bet, does that make an 8 more probable or less probable after he clicks call? Imagine all the hands he would fold. He would fold king 10, he would fold ace 9, he would fold pocket 2s, but something special happened. He didn't fold. So that makes 8 a lot more probable. It's still not a guarantee. It's still, I would still say it's slightly unlikely. Now, if you bet here on the turn, if you go forward just a bit here with the repair, and now he raises you, does that make an 8 more probable or less probable?
More.
So you see 2 streets, he's done a move that makes it more probable. Calling the flop and now raising the turn. So now at this point, an 8 could be close to his average hand. I mean, he might have a king, but it's tough. Poker's tough. What can I say? But I hope at least you find it educational, and I hope you have belief that you can improve on these situations.
Yeah, I will work on them. I hope I won't do all those mistakes.
I have a compliment in that. You know, the hands you chose to review for today, I think they were very interesting hands. So I think you did a good job choosing the hands to review.
Okay, do we stop here or do we look
at an accident, or did you put a lot of effort into choosing the hands to review?
I choose the ones that that I find interesting when I think I might have done something wrong. I didn't play as I should have, or I'm not sure if my action was correct, so that I can talk it through with you. Did I put a lot of effort in it? I would say the same as usual.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think you do a good job in general choosing hands to review, but I think this time it's been especially interesting hands. So good on that.
Stop here, or do you want to see one more hand?
I think it's a good moment to stop. I know you want to do
Great.
one more hand, but I would say this for you in not today, not tomorrow, but someday after tomorrow. Review all these hands we reviewed together on your own and have try to remember what we talked about and have a new look on those hands. So I believe you have a good memory and looking at hands once is good, but I've often found that's helpful if you take a couple of days and then go through these hands once more and think through the decisions, think about what does it mean what the opponent does, and also using that average hand to have some guidelines, and that can change based on what happens. So exactly when someone calls, suddenly a 5 or an 8 or something like that becomes more likely. And if someone raises, now all the better hands also become more likely.
Yeah,
so
I agree, Norman.
And then I would wish you good luck in your play and patience and belief. And really, yeah, I think I know it's possible, right? I know it's possible to do well in poker. So you just have to keep on trying your best.
Yeah, I didn't say I gave up, Norman. I didn't say I gave up. Look, I'm a little frustrated with myself because I don't think I played actually that good. I thought that it was just the variance who is pushing my bankroll down. But now that I look at my cards, I also think that I did a lot of bad mistakes. So yeah, I hope I can improve and play better in the future. But until then, it's very good that I'm still just playing at level 1. Because
Yes,
if I make too big stuff at level 1, at least it's not so expensive.
Yes, I agree with that. And I've also played level 1, right? So I also started level 1. So I know what it means. And level 1 is the toughest level. This next level, it will be, I always think, level 1, there's some level like this, right? And when you start, that might be very far from level 1. But usually level 2 is just a little bit higher than level 1. So for you, the first big job is to get all the way from wherever you start, all this long way to match level 1 and then even surpass it. And then from there, it's just a little bit more level 2, little bit more level 3. It's the toughest level to.
Yeah. But there are two things that are very hindering to me. One is that the edge you have in poker, according to me, is always very small. So when Daniel Negreanu sits in a table, I'm not sure he even has an edge because he's playing against the best poker players in the world. I think they might be just as good as him. And if he has an edge, how much would I put him having an edge? I would say maybe 1, 2, 3%. If really he's that much better, 5%, but I don't think actually he does have 5%. I'm not even sure he has. I would say his edge might be 0.1%. Now, that makes him a lot of money, against his opponents, but it also requires him to play 12 hours a day. So the issue I want to come back with poker is one, your edge, since you will, let's say I get better and I get an edge of 5% or 15% against my level. But then I go to level 2. Then I'm not at 15 or 5% again. Then I drop again at 10, 8%, just because I went higher. So the edge is never that much. And if you want to make money out of it, if you have 0.1% edge, what maybe Daniel Negreanu has against his opponents, they're not stupid. He plays against the best players in the world. And their days, they're quicker to think. Their days, they analyze a little better. So if you have 0.1% edge, you really, really have to play a lot to make money. Now, since he's very high, he managed to make a little living out of it, but it's never easy.
I disagree with that for this reason. If you play poker for, let's say you play 1 hour. How many decisions you have to do that 1 hour?
Maybe 100?
Maybe 100. I think that's a good guess. Now, the thing is, if you're a Daniel Negreanu and playing against another good player who mostly knows like what you do, but the thing is that 5%, it will be either every decision you do 5% better. They bet half pot, you bet 2/3. They bet 2/3, you bet half pot. That could be 5% every hand. And also what it could be is it comes down to one hand where Daniel Negreanu folds and has 50 big blinds, and then the other player doesn't fold and loses 50 big blinds. So in poker, it's actually the edges are way bigger than you would imagine, and there is variance. But variance is also, in my experience, it's more some word big fish like to say to themselves to feel like comfortable about it, because variances, it does happen, but I would say it like this, it's like 1 times out of 5 it's variance, 4 times out of 5 it's probably just not the best play, right? So and if you think about all the hands we review, even one hand where there's decision pre-flop, flop and turn, how many hands there are that I would do pre-flop differently, flop differently, and also turn differently. So all 3 options, or 2 out of 3, or 1 out of 3 streets, I would do something different, right? The last hand we just reviewed, pocket tens. I would have bet more on the flop, right? Which wouldn't have gone well. He had an 8, but I would have bet more on the flop. And also on the turn, I would have checked. You bet half pot on the flop, and you bet half pot again on the turn. So
Yeah,
already
I played that hand very bad. I do not disagree with that.
I'm just trying to say how there's so many decisions in poker and there's so many ways to make a mistake. So
Norman, I like you a lot and I like your teaching a lot, but I don't think it's easy to make money playing poker. I don't think that.
I don't think it's in my experience, but
well, then maybe yours is just 10 times higher than mine. That's why it looks easy for you. But the thing is,
at this point, it's not hard, right? Because
what do you say?
At this point, when I played poker 11 years, I feel it's easy.
Yeah, okay. Let's see how I look at it in 11 years.
Exactly.
But what really strikes me is my feeling that might be wrong. Huh? It might be just a passage because I'm doing better in the markets. But when I look at the markets, I always get the feeling that I can beat the other players, that I can be better than they are, that I do more research, that I do my work better, that even, lastly, I made a mistake last week. My mistake was that I went to the setup of my trade too fast, and I added 1 0. So I ended up taking a position 10 times bigger than I actually wanted to do, and I didn't realize, and that trade did go against me. So I hate myself for making a stupid mistake like this. But you must know, I take so many trades that it can happen once that you just don't look at the numbers of zeros and you make a mistake. And the thing is, the zeros vary a lot because it really depends what you are trading. So it's not always the same amount of zeros. But I made a stupid mistake and my risk was 10 times bigger. And instead of just losing 1, my normal amount, I did lose 10 times more. So that's bad. That hurts my bottom line. But I thought about it and I will check it. I will be very truthful and with the next position I do. And I hope I'll never make the mistake again. I think I can improve and get better. And also in my trading journal, I did put in the quantity that I usually take. Now that varies because my stop loss is not at the same point. So sometimes when the stop loss is too far away, then I take less risk by taking a smaller quantity of the thing I'm buying. But the thing is, I did write the average quantity I take for the trade. So for the Japanese yen and so on, the Mexican pesos, I did write the average quantity. And now what I will do is every time I take a price, I will look if it is close to my average or if there's something wrong, because it should be close to that. It should be always around the same for everything that I trade. But you see, I make stupid mistakes even in trading, but I still believe a lot in me and I believe I can beat on the long run the other players. Now, With poker, I'm not that optimistic. I know you're a great player, teacher, and I really, really enjoy meeting you once a week, but I just don't have that optimism. Now, it might be just the phase I'm going through because in the markets it's not going too bad, and I think like everything will get only better in the future. But that might be an impression. If I go through 2 years of only losing money, then I might change my opinion. But until now, that's not the case. Anyways, I don't want to bother you with that, but...
No, it's a good comment. And you know what it brings to my mind? Next time to review hands, not only what you're doing, but all the mistakes your opponents are doing, right? Because always in our lessons, we're focused on what you should have done different. But all the hands your opponents play, they're probably doing things way worse in many cases. So I think that's really where the confidence in poker comes from, is if you see what the opponent does and recognize why that's a losing play for them. And I mean, I'm sure you've been there where you have aces, the other guy goes all in, they have 50 big blinds and they're all in with pocket sevens or something like a big, great mistake. And then you're like, I would never do this mistake. And so don't you get that sense? We can look at their mistakes or talk about more of the opponents, what they should have done differently next week. But when you play on the table, don't you see all the things they shouldn't do and then get the belief through that? Or maybe you don't understand why what they're doing is wrong or so bad. Or
No, I get that. But it's a double sword and it has two edges. It's a sword with two edges. The thing is, I know that I play better normally against an average opponent. But the thing is, that makes me want to take more risk, actually. Because I tell myself, he's stupid. He makes stupid things. He will call with a 5. For example, when I had 10. I tell myself, well, he's so stupid. He will call with a 5. On board, and then I get into trouble. So knowing that I play better actually makes me go into trouble. What makes me better play is if I think my opponents are better than me, then I would be more careful. But I think if I think they are worse than me, then I have tendency of going loser because I think it's easy to beat them.
Still have to be careful. I mean, good that you observed it. It's interesting. And I know that also from personal experience also. But it's a mistake. You should still be careful, even against the...
I understand why you say it's arrogant, and it is true. The issue is that even if you have a weak opponent, he can still beat you, and that's also in life. You should always be careful. Even if you have somebody in a wheelchair, well, you still not think it's easy to kill him or that everything goes right, even if you want to kill him. Because you never know, maybe in his wheelchair he has a weapon and then everything turns, suddenly. You know, you're not the favorite anymore. Or he has a knife when you don't have a knife. So you always should be very careful. And it's not just because the guy is stupid or weak that you can easily beat him. Anyways, Norman, it was awesome to talk to you. Thanks a lot for all your time and all your patience. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.